talk about your emotions and
Yeah.
do whatever it takes. Like, you got to understand that as a man, you also have to be somewhat in touch with the feminine side as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Life, Business, and Bodybuilding. Before I introduce my first guest, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to everybody that tuned in for the first episode of Life, Business, and Bodybuilding. I'm truly grateful and thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, my first guest. Let me give you a little rundown on this behemoth of a human. Now, he started training when he was just 16 years old, probably bigger than what I am now when he was 16. He started training after seeing a photo of Arnold Schwarzenegger on a Muscular Development magazine. Last year, he competed in his first IFBB season. He walked away with 9 gold medals, ladies and gentlemen. It's more than what most people win in their career. He walked away with 2 overall titles and an IFBB Classic Pro card. I've seen this guy train. His work ethic in the gym is inspiring. He makes me look like an absolute fetus, and I'm no small human, ladies and gentlemen. He's 6'3", 120 kilos, deadlifts 7 plates for about 15 reps. I've seen it in person. Please welcome Jaxon.
Thank you, Ryan. Man, it's so good to be on the podcast for the first episode, man. Means the world to me, man. Just, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
I'm grateful, mate. Thank you for joining me. Now, I want to get straight into it. First question for you. Tell me, last year, in that first season, where you pretty much took my pro card off me, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Jokes.
Sorry.
Play me. When Tony announced you the newest IFBB Classic Pro, I want you to tell me in your heart and in your mind, how did that feel?
Honestly, it's really hard to sort of, really contextualize into words sort of what I felt when I won it, because this is incredibly difficult to say, but I sort of knew that I won it after I won the open class. And I think, with all respect to, when I, for example, compete against Dom, I just had this feeling that, once I won the open, I had a really, really good shot at it.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever set in stone. You only know what you know within that period of time.
That's confidence within yourself too.
Yeah,
though, right?
and I think that's why, because I remember leading up to when I was prepping and before I started prep for that show, I sat down, I'm like, if I ever won my pro card, I'd just break down and cry. And I didn't do that. And I sort of sat there sort of asking myself after I won my pro card, like, why didn't I get really emotional? Was because that I wasn't expecting a pro card that day. I was just expecting to just have a fun day with family and friends and maybe hopefully win the novice, just being first time competing. But yeah, I just honestly sat there and I sort of just knew that all the work was done, and that's why I didn't have this massive burst of emotion when I won, because I just knew that, I did everything I could. And, some people might respond to it differently, but when Tony announced it, I could sort of sense he was going to say my word, but I didn't. I always knew that, just in case he didn't, that's okay.
Yeah.
So what quickly ran through my mind was about 1,000 images at once of just my family, my friends, everything I've been through, all my failures, people who supported me, people who hated me. And I think that's why it's just so much to take in and sort of contextualize into words, because so much happened at once. And I realized that within that very, very brief period of time when there was so much noise going on, I just quickly, just sort of bent down on my knees, and I sort of just try to quickly pray to God and say thank you, and just sort of, thank him for all the opportunities that he gave me throughout, all my life, and to, helping me lead to where I wanted to go. And so that was the biggest thing. I just felt a sense of gratitude. I think if it was one word, it could be gratitude.
And at that Nationals, that top 3 with Dashi and Cam, what a lineup. Any one of you 3 could have won that. I think, and again, not being biased, you're my best mate, but it's I think you still had them. But 3 incredible physiques.
Amazing.
On any other day, they would have won their pro card. They probably hate you, but love you at the same time.
And this is what I sort of think is that, even looking at the Australian Amateur League on how, high caliber all of our athletes are is incredible.
Yeah.
Every single one of those guys could have definitely walked away with a pro card. And I think that's why when we're doing, the posing in the top 3 and the call outs, at one little point I got moved to the right side, and I'm like, oh, that's okay. Like,
they made you work too. Brett had you.
They had me working, and I knew though that my posing fitness was up to
100%.
scratch, and I was very, very happy with what I was just having.
Practice your posing, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. You heard it from the man himself. And and when I got moved out to the side, I sort of realized like, hey, like that's okay. I'm still top three in the country pretty much. That's amazing, And I was ready to go home with my head held high and just say, man, what a season, and because even leading up to that, before that day, I was like, oh, what if I don't win? And I said, that's okay. Like whether you win or not, it doesn't matter. It just matters about who you are as a person. And so that's why I just genuinely just came to terms with, whatever the outcome is, that's out of my control. But I said to myself that morning in the mirror before I left to go there was, no matter what, Jaxon, the outcome is you have a good day.
Yeah.
That's it. And so, I just honestly thought it was an incredible lineup, and just I had such a great time. And like, it was also great to finally properly meet you, because I heard so much about you and saw how amazing your posing was. I'm like, damn, like we've got to compete next to this guy, bro. Like,
I told him to say that beforehand as well. Yeah. So let's segue into that then. So what's your, I guess, opinion on what do you think the number one trait or personality trait, for example, that would make a successful bodybuilder, especially today?
I think especially today, because you have so much noise from social media, from family and friends, and all these, very large factors that, of noise essentially from people. And I think the number one importance to have like a good personality trait, in my opinion, would be just to have a very, in my opinion, process-based mindset. So, like I usually sometimes put on stories like #process-driven, because, a good training partner of mine, John Storaitis, he was a massive inspiration to me. He nearly died. He was in a coma for like over 2 weeks, and he had like a botched surgery, and then he fully came back, and he's got a family and kids, and he competed, and he, looked in like got into the best shape of his life in 18 months. And so from him, I learned how to become process driven. And also too, as well, when I was doing, when I was competing throughout that whole process of 6 months of prep, I was doing Bible study every single week, and I'll do Bible study every Tuesday night. And it would just talk about, our pastor and all that kind of stuff, and all the people associated with the church running the program. They would always talk about, for example, like this is a process leading up to Easter. And I sort of like said, like, what kind of process do you mean? And they said, like this is the process of, of becoming a Christian, becoming a Catholic. It's, it's not about when you become baptized, it's about this process of learning and understanding God. And so then I sort of took that away and realized, okay, well, from my training partner, John, and from my, religious beliefs and being a Catholic, I can take that into bodybuilding, hopefully, and, become a process-driven person and enjoy that process. And that's how I lasted throughout the whole prep, because there were times where it was really, really tough.
Yeah.
And I think it always is tough. And this is something that, regardless of what level you work at or play at as an athlete, I think it's about being a process-driven athlete. I think that's the biggest trait, personality-wise as well. And also too, just, making sure to always, humble yourself and know that, there always is someone out there better than you, but also too, know your self-worth and push as hard as you can, like, really make your impact on the world, for sure.
Yeah. So it's always one of my favorite quotes was like, blissful dissatisfaction, right? Be really happy and content where you are, but always striving for something better, because you know that you can always up yourself to another level, right?
Yep.
So
I understand.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think just like when it comes to, I was really interested on learning like the 4 levels of mastery. So it starts off with unconscious incompetence. So you don't know what you're not good at. So essentially you just fresh into the game. Then you have this level where a lot of people are at in any sort of sport or any sort of given field of like skill. And it's called, I believe, conscious incompetence. So then they know now what they're not good at. So they have a base of what to improve on. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm not good at shooting a 3-pointer in basketball, so I need to obviously work on that. And then you have obviously then the upper echelon of mastery where, you have the conscious competence, which is like, you are good at something, but you have to constantly, work on your ability to be really good at, that endeavor. And then you get to the point of mastery, like, whether it's bodybuilding, prepping or posing or anything in life, where you have this thing called unconscious competence, where you can just do it blindfolded.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's why
It's like if we put blindfold on us, we could still go do our routine on stage.
Exactly.
And it'd be fine.
Exactly.
Remember that Cedric McMillan one? That was sick.
That's what I was literally going to say.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was about 17 and I remember watching that routine on YouTube, I sat there, I'm like, how is this guy doing that? You know, it's unbelievable. And I think it just comes down to just years of constantly working and chipping away at that profession that you want to be really good at and excel at to enter a level like that. You know, I think it's like with anything. It's like, well, you know, it's like, why is LeBron James, like in my opinion, the king? He's called the king, the greatest of all time, because he's literally worked at this sport for like 80% of his life.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that, it's like, for example, like for you, you've had much more skin in the industry than me. And, you know, like people ask, how do you get so conditioned and eat so much food, bro? Like, you know, and I think that's because you've had such a long period of time in this industry and having that experience. So I think that's a big factor for sure. This bodybuilding is a very interesting sport because it's just so different, but it's such the same to most sports, but then in some areas so different.
But even going back on what you said about enjoying that process, what's that quote? The man that loves walking will walk further than the man that loves a destination. Because it's like, at the end of the day, we just love bodybuilding. And not saying I'm a successful bodybuilder, but I've had wins and I still look decent turning 40 years old or whatever. But it's like, I love it. I love the posing. I love the dieting, you know, the quote suffering. I don't want to use that word because we choose this sport, but it's like, I love getting in the gym and better myself. I love posing and going, oh, I need a little bit more lower lats. So regardless of the show or the placing, you're always progressing because we just love this sport.
Exactly. I completely agree. And I think that's why, you know, like, especially the good thing about the industry now is that, you know, a lot of athletes are now really taking on that mindset of being a process-driven athlete because, you know, when it comes to the outcome of the day, it's just completely out of your control. And I think that's why in this sport, you know, it's very interesting because a lot of people that say, oh, you know, I just want to win. I want to win a pro card. I want to win an overall. Like, yeah, that sounds cool. But, you know, if you don't love the process as much as the outcome or even more so than the outcome, I think it's going to set you up for failure because, you know, I can go in wanting to win my pro debut, but if I don't win, what's going to happen then? How am I going to react to that? So it's like the whole emphasis of like, you know, 99% of life is how you react to it. 1% of it is what happens to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. It's all about, you know, perception versus perspective.
I think that was, to digress slightly into that, when I did all those shows last year, I was so hell-bent on achieving that goal that nothing else mattered. And sometimes that can be okay, but that's why I said in that last episode as well, why afterwards, I came to you, remember, and I gave you a hug and I cried, and it was like, I genuinely suffered because I'm like, I don't know what to do now. Yeah. Because I was so into that, but everything else stopped. I wasn't as busy Bear Bros. I wasn't as busy Klein. I wasn't as active as a dad, to be honest with you, with my kids. I wasn't supporting my ex-wife like I was. So it was all of a sudden, I'm like, the fuck do I do now? So I did turn into one of those guys that was bodybuilding was everything. And I achieved it, which was great. But then it took me a long time to get my groove back and needed people like you around me to go,
100%.
Okay, I'm good again now. Let's
100%.
just remember that bodybuilding's not everything. It's just a very small part of our life that we love. But yeah, you got to make sure there's all this other shit there because otherwise you'll end up like one of these 70-year-old weathered skin on Venice Beach living in a caravan still dreaming of being a pro.
So what did you do though? Like when you were, because I know when I saw you
cry. That's all I did. Cry myself to sleep every night.
Well, what do you think were the biggest things that were you starting to then really push your business even more than when to really try to sort of divert just from bodybuilding at the time? Were you trying to also be then more present as a dad throughout early, like later last year?
I think I just had to realign my values. Yeah. Because like I always said that like being a dad was the number one thing. And I've been called a number of things in my life, none better than dad. But during that time, bodybuilding took over. Yeah. And it took over where it was like, you know, Huddy or Goldie or Hazel was like, you know, can we do this? And I'm like, no, I'm doing this. And I was like, oh, that kills me to say that, bro. Do you know what I mean? Because I put bodybuilding before them, which it's like I promised myself I wouldn't do that. Yeah. And I did. Yeah. So it was like, it was realigning the values to go, you know what, let's just put the phone down, stop following bodybuilding, just put that down for a sec, go and hang out with the kids at a park and just... And it's like, oh my God, this is life. Exactly. This is what's more important. They're going to be around forever. Bodybuilding.
You get a reality check, for sure.
And then same thing, like push the clients more, push business, get out and do hens buddies again, all this sort of stuff. And then still bodybuild, but like I said, just get this purpose in other areas as opposed to just bodybuilding. And that's why this prep has been so fucking good, bro. You've seen how happy I've been this prep. I'm 2 weeks out and I'm the happiest dude achieving all these things.
It's like happy like in peak off season.
That's what I mean. Like, I'm fine, bro, because I'm doing all these things and I'm giving myself purpose. But like, I still want to win as much as I can this year and put my very best up there. Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Exactly. Well, the funny thing is that, you know, my fiance, she also has a psychology degree and she's a very smart cookie. And she was telling me how, as an athlete, if you also have exactly, it's prep. And she was telling me how with athletes primarily in performance-based sport, they did studies on this apparently. I cannot cite them, unfortunately, because I don't have a PhD. But anyways, you know, they were talking about how they had a study done on athletes who, you know, still, you know, progressed as much as they could in their sport in their given field, but they also had other hobbies not around that sport. And it actually, you know, on a psychological level, it made them actually enjoy their current sport more because it wasn't the only thing they were doing all the time. And I think this is very applicable with bodybuilders as well, is because, you know, it's a 24-hour sport. I think it's great to have other things to do in your life as well, because, you know, if I was just at home, just twiddling my thumbs, like waiting, like, oh, when's the next meal or when's the next cardio, when's the next training session, I'd probably go out of my mind. You know, and I think that's why last year, for example, you know, I love playing video games.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was playing tons of like Baldur's Gate 3 and Call of Duty with all my friends. And I was hanging out with friends that didn't even know what bodybuilding really was. And, you know, I just felt like a person, you know, and I think, but also at the same time, when I was in the gym though, I was able to really then just flick it on.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important as a bodybuilder and as an athlete to also just understand that, you know what, this sport doesn't define you. Like, for example, you are Ryan. You are Ryan, the business owner. You're Ryan, like, you know, you're not Ryan, the business owner or the bodybuilder. You know, you are Ryan, but you do these things.
Yeah.
You don't allow them to define you. And I think that's where a lot of people get convoluted with that information of like, oh, the more I do, the better I'll be. In a sense, yes, but also no. There's a point where it becomes a double-edged sword. And I think that's one thing that athletes need to learn a lot more, because something that isn't addressed as much, unfortunately, is the psychology around why we do what we do and who we are as a person and why do we make these decisions. And I think that's something that needs to be brought up a lot more in this industry, because, you know, unfortunately as well, you know, we're also still getting over this era of like, you know, look at me, I'm better than you and all this kind of stuff, which I really do not like. And I think that's why though, it's great to see like, you know, people like you though, showing the younger generation like me and other younger guys as well to really be a process driven and just enjoy, you know, what you've got, and also to, you know, try to be the best person possible before bodybuilding, because I think that's so important, because only so many people will listen to me because I'm only 25. You know, unlike you have many years of experience, of life experience upon me. So I think, you know, a lot more people should be listening to you on, you know, how to go about certain areas in life, you know, because I've only been on this earth for so long.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
What we said before about, again, a personality trait, I think one of those things, look, without sounding like tooting my own horn with it, I look at Scott Goebel as one of the greatest bodybuilders this country's ever produced.
100%.
Not just because of his success, but for how people talk about him. And it's almost like when it's all said and done, I want people to look back at me and go, oh, I remember when he helped me with this, or, oh, he did that. Oh, Ryan, great dude. He did this. So it was like, it's such a small industry.
Yeah.
And I think it's very, very important to like still give back. And I think I'm at that stage now in my career where it's fun to do that, because a lot of like young blokes like you, yes, you're a more successful athlete as far as like, if you look at it on paper, you know, pro athlete sort of thing. But like I said, I've had more skin in the game. You asked me for advice, but then at the same time I asked you for advice. We've done it before.
Yeah,
you helped me with posing, right? Yeah. But I love the fact that I've had a lot of young bodybuilders reach out.
I love that.
Asking about steroids, or asking about, you know, how did you still have the kids after steroid abuse? Like, how did you and your partner do that? Or, you know, and then taking them through that process and being, you know, open and honest about these sort of things, because 100%. It's a taboo topic. No one wants to talk about it, but it's like, it's unfortunate. Dude, I was fucked for a year afterwards, you know. It took my ex and I a long time to have kids, you know. So it was like being really open and honest and giving back to these young kids. And at the end of the day, it sort of comes down to, I don't give a fuck what you think of me, because it's like, I'm a grown man. I don't care. Like, as you get older, you give less fucks.
Yep. Definitely.
But at the same time, it's so nice to give back to this younger generation and show them.
Help them.
And help them. And that's why, again, like I look at Scott as again, I joke and call him Lord Goebel, but and you've worked with him before as well, right? So I call him Lord Goebel, but it's like
when I see him next.
Does anybody have a bad thing to say about Scott?
No, and I still remember when also he coached me.
I've never heard him swear. Like, he's just such a polite human, like,
I still remember also when I won my pro card. He came up to me and congratulated me, and I said, "Oh, thank you so much for everything you've done to help me get to me to this position." He's like, "Oh no, I didn't help," and I'm like, "Scott, please, like, you had a very, very big impact in my life. You introduced me to the sport. You welcomed me into it and helped show me the way." And I think, it's just giving people the recognition where they deserve it. And this is the problem as well with people who, athletes who win. They just, it's all me. No, it's not.
Well, he said the same thing to me after the shows. I embraced him and I said, I really appreciate your support over these weeks. And he goes, I don't know if you realize you pretty much just coach yourself and I take your money. And it's like, dude, you've got no idea. Like, even though I come in there, I pose and you just say, do this, and I go away and do it, I still cried to you every Thursday and checked in with, and I spoke to you about stuff I was going through, like you were still that guy. And we've known each other since, I think, 2004, 2005 when I started at Doherty. So we've had this 20-year relationship together and worked together for 4. So it's like,
that. Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Like, we're the OGs now.
I was literally 5 years old. I was in 5-year-old kinder.
No, I know. I joke about that. I said that to someone the other day where it was like, you were 3 when I did my first show. And it's like, so you were like 5.
Wow. And I just think it's great to have good people in this industry. I genuinely think that, when I first came to this industry in like 2020, over 5 years, so much has changed now. But I think it's just always growing and just always moving in the right direction. We just have like amazing people to help push this sport. Like we got Tony as well, who really cares so much about us as athletes. Like it really the stuff he does to help people is just incredible. And then also too, like every single person at IFBB, like how they just are very welcoming. They help out everyone. They make sure that the athletes are treated well on the day. Like this is why I love this sport. The reason why, so sorry.
You're fine.
My fiance. That was my fiance. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Em.
Yeah. And I think that's why, being around, again, like-minded individuals just makes you feel so welcomed.
Yeah.
And this is why, I love this sport so much, because some people still look at it like, why do you do that? Why do you do this sport? Is it?
Why do you play tennis? Shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
I don't like tennis at all. I couldn't think of anything less boring. 100%. But people look at me posing in front of a mirror and say, you're a widow. I'm like, great. Cool.
And that's the thing. So I feel like you got to do what you love. And this is why, though, I try to relate to as many younger men or athletes as much as possible, because it was really hard for me, when growing up. I don't really have any role models, and so that's why a lot of people especially tell me the way I try to present myself, it's when I want a pro card, it's with great power comes great responsibility. And I said, I never asked for it. I never asked for a pro card, but I'm glad I got one. It was amazing. But now with that, there comes the repercussions of the way I talk to people, the way I interact with people, what I say on social media, all these things are very, very important, because I want to make sure that I'm an effective role model for people. I don't want to walk around being a pro, oh, look at me, I'm bigger than you and I'm better than you. I never, ever want to be like that. And so this is why, for me, it's just so important to really just come across as someone who can be relatable, and also just tell them you can achieve whatever you want. You just have to work hard, but you just don't know when your time is. That's it.
Well, let's dive into that then. Do you feel pressure now being, I guess you've risen to fame to a point, if you want to call it that, quite quick. Your following's growing, your online business has taken off like crazy. Do you feel pressure now because you are the newest IFBB Pro? I know you've got shows coming up in the end of the year in America. You're this hot topic, future Mr. Olympia, all this sort of stuff. Do you feel pressure, or does this excite you to kind of portray yourself in a certain way because there's eyes on you now, whether you like it or not?
It's so funny because, when I was always trying to compete for those amateur shows, the amount of overwhelming anxiety would be so bad. I would self-sabotage myself. I'd go and, cheat on my diet, or I'd just pull out and say I'm not good enough, and just sort of have these negative, mindsets I would get in, and it'd be really hard to shake off. And then leading into the pro card last year and even the state show, I acted like I had nothing to lose, because I didn't, and I had everything to gain from it. And after the VIX though, about 2 days after, the night after, so the Sunday night, I actually called up Emmy. It was a very, very overwhelming experience. I nearly won 2 overalls in one day, like, which has never been done. And it was just a big day. And I actually called up Emmy that night because I was still living at my parents' house. And I was like, called her. I'm like, I don't want to compete. I don't want to do the nationals. I don't want to do it.
Was this just like the Pro Card Nationals the night before? Wow.
I literally called her up and I said, now I'm telling everyone. I haven't told anyone this for a long time. And I said, I don't want to do nationals anymore. She's like, why? Like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't want to think about a pro card anymore. I don't want to think about, winning. I just want to do it because I love it. And I feel like it's just too much pressure. She said, Jaxon, you're doing this show.
Thank you, Em. You saved us.
But she said, look, do this. Just keep following the plan. And by Wednesday, if you still love the process, do the show. And so I was like, it's a great mindset to have. And so I just really try to enjoy that week as much as I could. And man, I loved it even more than ever. And I just didn't even think 1 second about the nationals. Like, it was exciting. And, because a lot of people were telling me, this guy's competing, this guy won his overall, this guy's doing the show.
Isn't it funny how people do that? It's like, you see so-and-so, I don't care. I'm just focused on me, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that was a lot of pressure, but learning to really manage that was the biggest thing. And just knowing that I had nothing to lose. And now going into the actual pro league, and I've just act like I'm just, I'm getting married in 3.5 months.
Congratulations, dude. That's awesome.
And I'm really excited to just create my own family with Emmy. Yeah. And I feel like for me, that is just getting married for me is just such a big motivator in my life, and doing it for my family. Like, you have your kids, which are everything to you, and that's like, for me, like, starting to realize that it's not about me anymore. It's about my family. And, I think it can be very easy to then get pressure as well with, better athletes, bigger crowds, a lot more, engagement. But none of that, I don't give a shit about that. I just don't care. Like,
remember you and I had a conversation a while ago. Sorry to cut you off. We had a conversation a while ago where you're like, what's it like being a dad? And it's like, I can't tell you until you've had a kid. So when you have your kid, you'll come up to me and go, I get it, bro.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I know.
Yeah.
We don't even have to talk about it. I
exactly.
get it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's really hard to explain, but in retrospect, no, I don't have any pressure.
Yeah.
Because, all I wanted to be when I was 18, 17 years old, or even 16 was just a pro and just do what he loves. And that's it. And I'm doing now what I love. And I think that maintaining that process-driven mindset for me is something that will make sure that it just long-term, it will make me prosper as a person and as an athlete. So, with, I guess, in a sense, like, yes, there will be times where it might get really overwhelming, but I've got amazing people in my life that I can talk to.
It's the support network around you, right?
Exactly, because I used to be around a lot of people that, were very just not good at opening up about emotions. So I was very reserved always. And then I would just isolate myself and just not talk to anyone. And people would be like, wait, like, what's wrong? And I would even open their messages. I'd just leave them on read. And there was times where, like, I'd just be at home by myself all day for like a week and just not do anything and just literally just be stressed out of my mind. And I knew that getting out was the best thing, but I couldn't do it. It was so hard. And, I think that's why now, though, like, I'm not afraid to be seen anymore. And I'm just like, this is me, like, take it or fucking leave it.
I noticed you put on your story the other day, it might have been a week ago, where you're like, I think you're in the car and you were kind of like, a lot of me is reserved. What you see on my page is this. I kind of want to be more vulnerable. I want you to see who Jaxon is as a dude behind the bodybuilder, whatever. And I think that's something I can relate to, because a lot of the time, even honestly, I probably portrayed this certain thing on social media. I was suffering a lot in the process, but not really being open about that.
Yeah.
And it was funny, like, not that people knew about this, but like, my ex-wife and I were separated for a year before anyone even knew about it.
Wow.
Which is fine. Like, that's our business, and we sort of kept it like that. But it's more like, and you don't go out there and like talk about all this stuff all the time. Like, the close people knew about it. But I think once I started to just be a lot more real and a lot more authentic with my emotions and how I spoke and opened up to people or whatever, I started to feel better. And this is the thing where it's like, it's so important, even as men. I know we get bombarded a little bit, these days with mental health, but like, to actually open up and talk to people.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't do well in therapy. I overly didn't enjoy therapy. I didn't really like speaking to, quote, a professional. I got more out of talking to you.
Yeah.
I got more out of
100%.
Talking to Jace, Liam, Jeremy. Like, I speak to Jeremy every day. Like, you know that. We're best mates. But it's like,
true guy.
Like, he's like my therapist / best friend, brother, secret relationship. Don't tell Cynthia. But at the same time, like, I grew so much from opening up to you guys rather than a therapist. No disrespect to anyone that enjoys therapy. It's just not my thing.
I agree. And I think this is why, though, because you have that more relatability, versus sitting down with a professional. It's like, yeah, they might understand clinically what you're going through, but also too, it's like, they can't say, oh, I've been feeling like shit as well. And I think,
because you can relate it, like we said in bodybuilding. Hey, let's say I'm feeling this. Let's say you were feeling this pressure on social media to post something. I'll be like, dude, why don't we try this?
Yeah.
Whereas the therapist would be like, okay, tell me about that, and
100%.
you're like, oh, okay.
It feels a bit forced.
Yes.
It's like, it's like, imagine you were going to lose a V card for the first time. Like, if it was like planned, that's weird.
Yeah.
It feels like strange. Unlike if it just happens, it happens. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's a good relatability thing to say, but like, I think this is just very important things to focus on, is just like, if whoever you feel comfortable talking to, like, you need to maintain that, because it's hard to, speak to someone that you don't really know on a personal level, and like being more open. And, I think it's a very important thing, is like being able to show your friends and your family and the people that you trust who you really are. And I think it's very important, because, a lot of people talk about, it's like, you can't trust anyone. It's like, that's a really bad mindset to have. It's just that you just need to be careful with who you trust.
Yeah.
But you can still trust people. There are people out there that will drop everything for you.
Yeah.
And I think that value you more than you know. So this is why as well, when I put up that story last week, I got so many people messaging me like, what's going on with you? I'm like,
okay, so were they like, are you okay, or good for you? Bit of both.
Unfortunately, a bit of it was negative. Like, I actually had a few people say, like, what do you mean by this? Like, what's going on in your head? I'm like, nothing. I said, I just want to be more open with people and not just show people, I'm doing good at this and that. Like, I want to show that I do have struggles. Like, I am a person. I'm a human being. Like, and this is the problem with social media, because I see so many accounts that only just post the good stuff. Like, they never post the bad stuff. Because people choose what they want to show you about their life.
Yes.
And I can choose to show you all the good things about my life and not the bad stuff. And you think that I have a good life. No. And it's all contextual though. So, but I believe I had an amazing life. But with those highs do come the lows. And, that's why I think it's okay though. Just showing people that, it's not more just that I have struggles, but how do I manage them? Because that's also going to help someone who's younger and wants to compete and be like, oh man, like he has pressure as well. Like, and I think this is why we
all have shit, right?
Exactly. And I didn't realize, how stressful it is to, work like 12, 14 hours a day, like 5 to 7 days a week, which I'm trying to do. And then you sit there, it's like, Elon Musk talked about, no one would want to be me. My mind is like a storm.
I heard that. Yeah, I remember that one.
And when you think about it and you're like, damn, like I'm only doing this, and this guy is the richest man in the world. What the fuck is he going through?
Yeah.
And I think this is why just understanding that, you never ever know someone's mind truly, but you can only get a grasp of it and somewhat empathize with them. And I think that's why just being a friend is not even just providing a good solution, but just being there for them.
Yeah. Well, let's segue into that social media thing, because I do want to touch on that anyway, but it's like, because we've both had these conversations before, we have both been subjected to hate and whatever on social media. I've had it through Bear Bros and even through some of the stuff I've posted about being a dad. Remember I shared some of those reels with you.
I saw that.
Have you copped a lot of that? Have you copped, you're young, you shouldn't be doing steroids, you're doing this, you became a pro too fast, you didn't deserve it, you've only done 4 shows. Like, again, what you just said before about, the hate coming through because it's like, hey, I want to be more vulnerable, I want you to know who I am. And it's like, why?
Exactly.
Like, have you been subjected to that?
I think it's definitely true. Like, you're always going to get criticism amongst, the very few. And I think it's so easy to focus on that. But for me, I've definitely gotten criticism about, competing. Oh, you just got good genetics and this and that. And, but then they don't see how I train. And then also even when it comes to, my religion, people say, oh, you're not a real Christian because, you sometimes swear. And I'm like, well, I just want to be honest and open with people and, not be, not have a stick up my ass. So, but also too, just be me. And I think that's why, I try to do everything I can to be the best person I can. But, of course, I'm not going to be perfect. And I know that I'm not perfect. I'm never going to be, but that's okay. And it's just more about, when I receive criticism and stuff like that, like it sometimes makes me be like, oh, sometimes you read them, sometimes they hurt.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes they do. But then, you just sit there and like, oh, it's just people who don't know anything about you, because unfortunately criticism comes from people who are below you in any sort of area in life, and they don't know you. So, you know, someone who isn't as good as a bodybuilder as you will probably, and also doesn't know you, is probably going to say, oh, fuck that guy. You know, like he's just someone who, you know, got lucky and just, you know, has really good genetics. He can get super lean easy. And, you know, he's just like super successful. Like they don't know who you are and they don't know your struggles.
They don't know the traumas. They don't know anything. It's kind of like
that's okay.
What I went through in that first episode last week, where it was like, just be curious, not judgmental. Why? Just ask a question, find out about that person, because you've got no idea. Even walking across someone homeless on the street, we judge and we go, oh, look at that, drugs, whatever. Dude, that could have been me, split with the ex-wife, issues with certain things. Instead of going into bodybuilding, I could have gone down to drugs and alcohol, lost all my money, lost all my house, end up on the street. So it's like there is a decision somewhere in that person's life that unfortunately went shit. You don't have to judge it. It's just like, hey, I'm really sorry this happened.
Exactly.
Do you want a muffin?
And I understand, everyone has a different like journey throughout their life. I think this is why judging people can be so vain, because also too, in bodybuilding, we also judge physiques on how they look. And this is where it can also get to the point where, you know, you can get so caught up with how you look all the time and also not how you treat others and not who you are as a person. So, and it's very easy to deviate away from that fact of trying to be a good person before you become a good athlete. Because when there was times where I'd focus on how I'm going to go train or I need to prep my meals, but then I'm like, oh, I need to walk the dog though. I need to take out the bins. I need to just, you know, tell Emmy like, hey, like, you know, do you want to go out this Saturday night for dinner? You know, like stuff like that, where that comes first than bodybuilding, you know, and it's very easy again to allow that to sort of take over your life. And I think this is why it's just very important to stay constantly grounded, you know, and I think it is hard though, because I also look at how social media is such a detriment as well sometimes, where people grow incredibly quickly. You get millions of followers straight away and all these great things can happen though. But unfortunately, when you grow really fast, you develop ego. And then, you know, that's why I like slow growth. Slow, consistent growth develops character. Yeah. Because, you know, there's this saying, you know, of, you know, those who are, you know, those who are exalted will be humbled, and those who are humble will be exalted. Yeah. You know, and it's something that I love. You know, I love that quote, and it just means a lot to me because, you know, it's great to have money or lots of followers and all these, you know, like esoteric things, but unfortunately you know, that can be gone straight away and can be taken away from you. The only thing that people are going to remember is who you were as a person. Yeah.
Like I said, and again, I don't have the same kind of following you. It's growing, it's good fun, but at the same time, like a lot of the dad stuff I did got a lot of hate, and it was not anything other to do with like I just want to share little exciting things or whatever, but it was like, did I tell you how I deal with that hate? So this is a shout out to Chris Sweeney, a very important friend and a good mentor of mine. So he said there's 3 things you can do, right? Anytime and everybody take note of this is great. Let's say a hateful comment comes through on a post or whatever you do. You either just completely ignore it because they want some sort of interaction, right? So you don't even you don't even respond. But let's say you comment and go, bro, beautiful dad. I'm like, thanks, man. Hope you're having a great day. But the comment that the hateful person left, you just completely ignore it. Yep. Otherwise, you like it and you give them a thumbs up and nothing else. So it's literally just thumbs up or this or, you know, the whole fucking lot like that. Yeah. Or the third option, this is where you can have fun with it, is you M&M them. Do you know what I mean by that? No. So it's like, if you've seen the movie like, what's it called? 8 Mile, right? You know when they do the rap battle and he's like, the other guy bags Eminem. Oh, you live in a trailer with your mom. You haven't been laid in this. You poor. You're a white man. You're this, blah, blah, blah. And just bags him. So then Eminem gets the mic and bags himself. Yeah. Right. And just says, I am a piece of trash. I do live with my mom in a trailer park. I haven't been laid in so-and-so. Yeah. So let's say a hateful comment comes through. I post something with my kids or whatever. And it's like that one I did with, practicing carrying dead bodies for when my daughters start dating, right? Yeah. The one where I put the sandbag over my head, right? And Hazel's just looking up at me, looking gorgeous, right? Yeah. Protecting daddy, you know? Some of the comments come through as like, you know, let's hope you're alive around that time because you'll die from steroid use. And I was like, bro, I know I'm going to die at the age of, I'm 40 now, I'm going to die at the age of 43. So hopefully someone could look after her. But then there's no comment, nothing after that. So it's just, you completely shut them down because you're disagreeing what they said. Let's say someone else was just like, oh yeah, sleeve tattoos and steroids. Great example for a kid. And I'm like, I know, man, hopefully I'm going to get the other one and hopefully she gets the sleeve tattoos too. and then just leave it. One other guy, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, terrible father, bad example. And my comment was, because I looked at his profile, I was like, dude, you got a great rig. And he's like, thanks, man. And then started following me. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
And it's very interesting the way people operate on social media. And also, too, they don't understand that there are gravity to the words that they say.
Yeah.
You know, like saying, oh, you know, this guy's not going to live past 30. It's disgusting. It's just disgusting. I don't know why people would say that.
I know. It's horrible, man.
It's really sad. And it's unfortunate. This is why, again, you know, with social media, again, there's always going to be the benefits, then there's also the drawbacks of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just something to focus on, only the benefits, only on how the people you can help. Because it can be easy to get caught up with the negative comments as well. And I think, though, it's just because a lot of the times, you know, people also fear what they don't understand.
Yeah.
And if they don't know you as a person, they're going to probably, you know, probably also fear you. Yeah, you're scary, man. Big bearded guy. But like more so just, you know, dislike what they don't know.
Yeah.
So I think this is why getting to know people and treating everyone with respect is a very important thing. It's like with Scott Goebel, like he's a very humble man, but also too, you know, no one can say a bad thing about him because, you know, he never responds also to criticism, I think. And I think that's why he's such a great role model for me because like, you know, being someone like that, you're a dad, you know, you have a very successful business and also too, you work very hard, but also too, you just treat everyone with respect.
Yeah.
And whether you have, you know, negative comments or not, you know, you just don't entertain it, you know. So that's it. I think it's great to have good people in this industry.
100%, bro. I want to ask you a question. We'll segue out of this for a little bit. Has there ever been a moment in your life, or what's a pivotal moment that has kind of shaped you to who you are today? So, because I know you, I've only known you for the last years. I don't know your childhood. I don't know what you went through your teenage years, anything like that. I don't know about your previous relationships. All I know is like the Jaxon I've had, you know, good conversations with recently. You're a very humble man now, very inspiring. The way you train, the way you treat people with respect. Has there been any moments in your life that have kind of made you go into that, for example, or shaped, like I said, shaped you to who you are today?
Probably two moments in my life where it really made me value it, and also it just changed my perspective completely. Probably my first instance, I was 13 years old, and I was having a really bad time at my old high school. So I moved schools after that because it was really bad. And I copped a lot of criticism from my peers. You know, I used to do ballet. When they found that out, they just unloaded on me. And unfortunately, it was really, really shit.
Yeah.
You know, so I remember it was like, it was around, I think it was like September or October 2012. I just had the thought of like, I'm just no use to anyone. I'm not good at anything anymore. I have no friends. I can't even talk to my family about these problems. I was like, what's the point? I'm just gonna fucking off myself. So I genuinely wanted to try and kill myself. And, you know, so I remember going to the garage and trying to find some shit to, you know, especially like I was going to like try to hang myself because I thought it was just the most easiest way that people do it. And it seemed like all you needed was just something off the door and you're good to go. And when I opened one of the cabinets and I saw there was a rope in there, I genuinely just for 10 seconds realized like there's something just told me don't do it. Something just told me just do not fucking do it at all, because I sort of looked at it as I'm 13 years old. I've got the rest of my life ahead of me, but also too, you know, I feel like if I just stick through this shit that's going on with all this, like I was getting bullied on like social media. You know, every time I went to school, people would make fun of me. I also got suspended for defending myself at school and cracking at a kid. And so I felt very alone. But I realized like, hey, but what if I just don't do this? And what if it just gets better? And that was the genuine moment where after that, I sort of just like, I had like a sliding cabinet door, you know, like with those little mirrors. So, and I opened it up and I just sat in my corner in like there and I closed the door for like 3 hours. No one knew I was in my room. No one knew I was in the house. And I sat there, I just fucking just completely broke down. And it was just making me realize like, fuck, like, you know, it was just really shit. And I just generally sat there and I'm like, fuck, like, I just got nobody, and it was really shit. And I said, no matter what happens in my life, I refuse to feel like this ever again. And so that was the first moment in my life where I genuinely valued my life, and also it was just a pivotal moment for me to start just trying to live to my fullest potential. And then the second moment was becoming baptized. So once I became baptized, I just had this newfound purpose in my life. And that was to, be the best person possible, and also to, have a family and try to be a role model to people. And I think that was the second biggest pivot in my life, because, I was finally baptized by God, and I finally found my purpose of where I wanted to go in my life was to inspire people. And so now this is why it carries me over from bodybuilding to other areas, because I'm not stressed if, I can't compete anymore, because I can try to inspire others in a different area in my life. And I think this is why, for some people, they can get very caught up with, with a certain profession if they're really good at it, because it's very hard for them to let it go. So that's why, I think for me, it was just those 2 periods of time in my life were very important, because I don't really talk about this kind of stuff. And, and I know that there's probably people that might listen to this podcast that might think about, suicide or, self-harm, and it's just not worth it. Like, just don't do it. And I think it's because, the value of life that you can help people is so much greater than the suffering that you can receive. And I think this is why, though, that for me, I always try to come in with a smile on my face, because I never ever want to see others, sad, and I don't want to bring them down. And and I think just being a leader to help people who don't have a voice and who just feel like they are alone is a very important thing to me, because I still remember there was a couple of friends that called me up like late at night a few years ago, and they're like, hey, like I feel like shit, I need you to come over. I'd fucking drop everything, I'd drive there. And I think this is just being the person that I wanted there for me, and as a role model, I want to try and live up to that expectation as much as possible. Yeah.
That was tough to hear, to be honest. Thank you for sharing it, because I know that's tough to talk about. It's like, and especially because you know how much I love you, so to hear that, that's full on. And I appreciate you sharing that, mate, especially on this platform. I guess from that, like what would you say to someone that's struggling? If there's people out there right now that are listening and they are feeling what you felt, let's say someone is a young kid, and we're both training young bodybuilders now that are coming in, and if they are going through something tough, whether it's, they're thinking about doing something that drastic or not, what do you say to them? Someone where you are now, and let's just say the successful human that you are, what do you say to them?
Just understand that, when you feel like shit, go and help someone, anyone on the street. It can be anything. You can say something nice to someone. You can give a homeless man $5, give him food. You can compliment somebody. You can do a nice deed for someone. I think doing something like that will then make you realize that the impact that you can give on people's lives is far greater than you removing yourself from this world. And I think this is something that is very difficult, that people don't give a clear message to, because they don't understand it. So if you are going through that, I think that, over time, finding as well your purpose with what you do is going to, of course, unfold throughout that period of time, helping people as well. And so this is why I think, though, that in your life as well, nothing is ever always great. Nothing's ever always shit. So, and I think this is a very important thing just to take away, is that your life is incredibly fucking valuable, because regardless of who you are or how much money you make or what you've achieved, the importance of you being on this earth is so great that it was like a trillions to 1%, ratio that you are alive and here. Why would you want to take that away? Because you can do so fucking much.
I really love that advice, man. I really appreciate that answer, because and what resonated was like being in the service of others. And I think that's kind of what life's about. So it's like also doing something for someone. It's a Tony Doherty quote, and it stuck with me ages ago when I did his Relentless Momentum a workshop that he did ages ago. I think it was something like, put your hand up, not put your hand out. So it was like, put your hand up to do something for someone else without wanting something in return.
Yeah.
And I try to do that a lot of the time. I try to like help someone without like, no, I don't need that money, or I don't need that. I just
Expecting
help you.
a favor in return.
Yeah, I just want to help you, because as a result, both parties become better from it. Do you know what I mean? So I really love that advice, man.
I think that's great. I think it's really good to think about, because the problem is, man, it's just like we have so many people in this culture, especially men, saying, oh, just suck it up. Don't talk about your emotions and do whatever it takes. Like, you got to understand that as a man, you also have to be somewhat in touch with the feminine side as well, which is like, expressing your emotions, talking about how you feel, because bottling these things up, there's an imbalance, and then it causes you to just implode, and which is, you don't want that. And that's why I think, my partner, she was incredibly helpful when we started dating in high school, to help me really get in touch with being a man, and like what is a man? Because like, we always have these questions like, what is a man? And most people usually will know the correct answer, but they always leave out an important factor is of like also being in touch with somewhat of a feminine side as well, being able to talk about emotions and being caring and being that soft, loving person, because we always talk about, the masculine side being a protector, being a warrior, being a father, being a provider. But also too, we need these other factors of life as well in our personalities.
Which makes this warrior even greater.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, makes him fight harder because he's got that softer side.
Well, it's like,
Go for it. Yeah.
so it's like even with, like that movie 300, with Gerard Butler. That's a great movie.
I've got the Spartan on my left shoulder now. Where it's
and it's a very masculine, movie. But you also look at too, like how, when he's with his wife in that movie, when he's, he's about to leave that next day, like that night, he's like, there with his wife and stuff.
Yeah.
They're very intimate. It's like, they have it also as one of the greatest warriors of all time was still providers, and also, like the most caring people to their partners. Yeah. And that's what a man is. I think it's incredibly amazing to look up to, someone who's a provider, protector, and just all these things, But unfortunately, as a man, it's hard because you have to be good at everything. 100%. You have to be the father, the therapist, the mechanic, the plumber, also too, like the gardener, there's a lot of things we have to be good at, but also too, that's a great way for us to have eternal growth. Yeah. Constantly get better.
Yeah. I want to go back on bodybuilding, because that's kind of where we were. Let's lighthearted a bit again. And obviously, again, we've got a lot of bodybuilders listening to this podcast. All right. Well, hopefully. Take us through, for example, like, and especially someone as high caliber as yourself now with an athlete, take us through what a show day looks like for you. So as far as like, obviously some preps are going to be different, like with a carb up process or whatever, but just kind of finish off in a way, like for the last 5-10 minutes or whatever, just kind of by the time you wake up and go and compete on stage, what's your process? What's your mentality? What's your, I guess, lead up into the show? Give us a little rundown on that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, like if we're talking about the day before, which is the carb up, to be honest, we've made weight, tans on. We're just obviously now getting some food in. Oh, honestly.
I remember you and I got a tan at the same time. It was freezing down there in the car park.
I was so cold. I will never forgive the kids instead of doing that to me.
Well, we're not there anymore, are we? The pavilion, let's go.
And then, that day before though, I just chill out, spend time with family and friends. A lot of friends would actually come over to my house. I just watch TV shows, had a bit of a vape. I just did that for obviously taste purposes.
Secret joint. Wait, what?
I don't condone smoking. Great appetite suppressant though. But when it comes to, that day before, just relax and try to really just enjoy time with family and friends, and like, just look back on the journey, just that whole process leading up, because it's massive. And then by the time competing comes, it's like, wow, like we're here, and then you look back, it's like, well, what have I experienced a lot of this process? What have I learned? How have I grown? And what's the most common emotion that I had throughout that period? And for me, it was gratitude and faith. Yeah. And, then obviously going into the night before, it's like, damn, I don't know how I'm going to sleep because it's so exciting. And, but.
Well, for you were going to quit your smart ass, you?
Literally, I know. So, and then, that morning I wake up, the first thing as I get up, I'm just excited, have a good day, and look my best and feel my best. And then I go to the mirror both those shows. I went to the mirror in the morning. Before I took the photos of the check-ins when I was straight out of bed, Amy was right next to me. I just said, looked in the mirror, and I also grabbed her as well. And I didn't shake her, but I was like, no matter what happens today, we are going to have a good day. Yeah. That's what I love. Right. And that's when I just realized, okay, today is going to be a fucking good day.
Yeah.
And then, just did my check-ins and I was really happy with how I looked. And I'm just like, it's all coming together and that's all I can do.
Yeah.
So now let's just chill out, drive to the show. And just enjoy the lead up, enjoy the process. And I saw you there, we getting tanned up.
I remember after we got the tan, I remember rocking up, and I'm a Marvel fan, all right? So I will sit down, feet up, watching Thor or whatever. I look over, you've brought a mattress, a sleeping bag, a pillow, headphones. You've brought your whole fucking bedroom into the show. Who's this guy think he is, eh?
I called it Camp Chungus. Camp Chungus.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that the next season, everyone started doing it.
Yeah.
It was so good. And it's true, you
Like you create a relaxing environment backstage, right?
Amazing.
Stress is huge on our body, especially at that time.
Exactly. So most of the time I just sit down, go on my phone and just watch scary movies, scary stories with Emmy and just have a laugh. There was actually one point, I got some videos of us, like we're in the pump up room and, we're just like dancing and like, I'm just fucking around and doing some like funny stuff. And, I was listening to like the Shrek songs and all that and it was just good. Great
So
time.
I'm a believer.
Yeah, literally. So, and there was one point that where my training partner and my dad, they were backstage with me and they were just stressing me out. And I said, can you guys just go and sit down?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, all good. And then I just called Emmy, I'm like, come here right now.
I need you. Yeah.
Felt so much better.
So where can people find you? Obviously, we've got your Instagram there. Like, how can people connect with you moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've also got a YouTube now. So that's, I've had that for a while, but I haven't really pushed it as much. So it's just my first name and last name, just Jaxon Guerin. You'll find that on there. And I'm going to be posting some exciting stuff, more training content, which is really cool.
We'll hit some sessions.
Exactly. We'll hit some training sessions. So I'm also on, Instagram. Those are the only two I'm on. I don't have TikTok, so I'm just,
Do you know, people have told me to get on that. It's just like, do I have to?
Trendy.
Like, there's
like one trend today and one trend tomorrow.
I know. I think Instagram's where I do most of my stuff. I think it sort of works well. So
it's more consistent.
Yeah.
I don't know. TikTok's really, it's interesting. I don't know how people can stay up to date with posting so much on.
I know. I'm trying. It's interesting.
It's interesting, but it's great. So it's always just good to I think in my opinion when it comes to social media, it's good to just promote the positives.
Yeah.
But also show your struggles.
Yeah. Mate, I want to thank you for today. I really appreciate you making the trip in and being my very first guest on the show. I think people are going to get a lot of value out of this. If you did get a lot of value, please like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff, build the channel. People need to hear what Jaxon and I have spoken about today, so definitely share it and get around us. And I look forward to catching up on the next episode with another special guest. So thank you guys. Appreciate it. Peace out. Keep smiling.